And welcome back to the Sports Wrap right here on TV 38 WRWR. Each and every Saturday morning from 9 to 10 a.m. on your Middle Georgia sports leader, TV 38 WRWR. Guys, we had a great week of sports. We had a BCS National Championship game. We're going to also talk, and later on in the show, we'll do a round table discussion and do our NFL picks for the playoffs. Our Atlanta Falcons are back in action. We will also talk about the coaching carousel with Brandon Evans, and also, we'll recap the BCS National Championship game and the dominance of the SEC and the standings of where Nick Saban stands nationally as a coach and at the University of Alabama. Also, we'll talk a little bit about the Georgia Bulldogs. They get some good information and find out that Aaron Murray is coming back. We'll talk about that and our thoughts on, was it a good decision for Aaron Murray to come back or a bad one? But first, I want to talk about some basketball, college basketball right here in the Middle Georgia area. Central Georgia Technical College has been on a roll. We obviously the men won on New Year's Eve. Big game for them. They broke a 6-game losing streak. They got back on the winning side, but played nationally ranked number 16 in the nation, Middle Georgia College, this past week. It was an interesting matchup, and Central Georgia Tech had an opportunity to win this game, led by the big man himself, who had a quadruple double on New Year's Eve. Cameron, the ankle breaker Baker, number 3 for the Central Georgia Technical College Cougars. He had a big game as well, had a double-double in that game versus Middle Georgia College. Also, number 23, Tyler Kendrick from Perry, Georgia, stand out there, had an exciting game as well. The CGTC Cougars actually led the number 16 team in the nation, Middle Georgia College. At the half, they led them by 3 points. And with only about 6 minutes left in the game, they were leading by 5 points, but to no avail. Middle Georgia College wins 72-59 in that game. Now, the Lady Cougars came into the game with an 8-game winning streak riding out versus the 7-2 Middle Georgia College Lady Warriors that are this team is loaded with a lot of talent from the Middle Georgia area. You got the twins Keita and Quita Hodges from Rutland High School, those standouts on that Middle Georgia team. The Lady Cougars were up to the challenge, wanted to keep that home winning streak alive as well as that streak that was going right now. It was a great matchup led by Amber Howell, number 33. Miss Howell had a big game. She put up 17 points and 12 rebounds, had a double-double in the game. Also in that game, you had number 20, Takira Gibbs, KG from Putnam County. She's a freshman standout for the Lady Cougars. Big win for the Lady Cougars over Middle Georgia College, 74-71. I had a chance to catch up with Coach Fowler Bullock, head women's basketball coach over Central Georgia Tech, post-game. Here's what she had to say. Here with Coach Fowler Bullock, head women's basketball coach. Coach, huge win. You guys beat Middle Georgia College tonight. This game was a telltale game last year for a team that was ranked. You guys are now 14-3, unbelievable.
Thank you. Middle Georgia's a tough competitor, just like they were last year, and so we really try to prepare for them. And they made some runs at us. It wasn't our best game by far, but we fought and we battled and we regained the lead and we won the game, and that's all we're really concerned about. You guys jumped out to an early 15-point lead in this game, and then you they kind of slowly but surely came back in at halftime, by halftime. What did you tell your team, obviously, with the halftime adjustments to come out and get them to close this game out? I thought we had to stop shooting so many threes. We let them get back in it because we weren't making them and taking more than we're used to taking. And then we talked about we gave up some offensive rebounds and we needed to box out, put a body on somebody and rip down a rebound. And I thought the second half they worked a little harder at it and we didn't take as many threes. And the ones we did take were good open threes that we were able to connect on. So, you know, at halftime you just never know what the other team's going to come out doing. But I thought we made the adjustments we needed to and we fought for it. Do you talk to them and work a little bit on, obviously, I guess the free throw shooting a little bit down the stretch? They kind of nerves, I think, a little bit more than anything. Kind of got to them, missed some late free throws. They could have put this game away a lot sooner. Yeah, we're really really fortunate. Actually, I do want to applaud the crowd, but it almost is worse for us because the girls get kind of a little tighter than they need to be because it's like everybody gets silent on them. Free throws have been our nemesis all year, though. It's been tough. I mean, the last 2 practices, that's all we did. We went over our sets and then worked on free throws, and we even did today and shoot around, and it just, it's been tough on us.
Even, I think it was the last game versus Southern Poly, I believe. You guys won big, but you didn't like the fact that they missed some late free throws in the game, had a little extra, did a little extra something after the game. That was a little interesting. Discipline obviously high on this team.
Yeah, and that's, gosh, we just work on it so much, but we just put emphasis on, who cares? If you don't make the free throws, you make up for it in another area. And free throws are not going to be the telltale for us in the long run. It's going to be about us playing our defense and executing our offense. If we don't get those opportunities at the free throw line, we're okay with it. But when we do, we really need to capitalize on it. And there's going to be a game where it's tight like this again, and we just we'll pray that they fall for us.
Well, right here, Coach Fowler Bullock, women's head basketball coach, 14-3. We want you guys to obviously give us a call. We want to do a segment, obviously, called Ask the Coach, 478-757-2571. That's 757-2571. Coach, Amber Howell has a double-double tonight. I believe it was 18 points, 10 rebounds. Very good situation. Obviously, Howell comes out big. She's been needing this game.
Yeah, Amber really was the X factor. We made an adjustment and we took her out of the starting lineup and we're bringing her off the bench, and she has responded so positively, and she needed this game. The last game she had 17 and 10, so another double-double back-to-back right in the beginning of the second half of conference is huge for us and huge for her confidence. But she was all over those boards. She kept after the offensive rebounds, and she got those opportunities by getting to the free throw line. And she was a little better than 50% tonight, but she's capable of 70 or 80% from the free throw line.
Takira Gibbs also dropped in 12 points as well, and Shamika Harris doing what Shamika does, 17 points. A big game for your ladies, obviously. And the thing I enjoyed also was to see Bria Walker come off the bench as well and drop a couple late three-pointers.
And Bria's capable of that. We see it every game. She comes in, she might have a tight first half, but she loosens up in the second half, and we needed those threes right when she came in. She really sparked us to kind of get some control back over the game, and I'm really happy for her because she, as a shooter, a former shooter, you really rely on your shot, and when it doesn't go in, it's disheartening to you because you know how hard you work on it. And Bria works her rear off in practice, making three-point baskets, so it's like really nice to see it carried over into the game.
Crystal Allen comes off the bench as well. She's contributed late against some of the bigs. Obviously, the girl, Juana Rollins, number 42 from Middle Georgia, comes in, nice size. She comes in trying to dominate the paint. Crystal Allen not allowing it, had 5 blocks in the game as well. Give us a little insight on how this freshman has been coming on late for you in the last couple games.
And Crystal, actually, she's not a freshman, she's a transfer sophomore. So she transferred from another junior college, which is great for us because her length. She's so great. She's long, slender, 6'2". She's able to contest shots, and we're really happy. We needed it, and she's been working in practice and saying, Coach, I want some more minutes. What do I need to do? And I told her, you're 6'2". I want you to patrol that paint, and I want you to keep shots out of there. And I think tonight she showed me.
Yeah, she showed it well, Coach. Coach Fowler Bullock, Coach, thank you so much for your time. Congratulations. 14-3, outstanding performance as well. Good luck going on in the future. You guys are doing it big.
Thank you.
All right, guys, I tell you right now, we've got a great crowd in here tonight. The crowd is enormous. And one of the things before I did let you go, how about the crowd? How did you enjoy that Monster Energy drink here tonight? Rutland High School representing. There's a lot of kids, a lot of people coming out. How about the crowd tonight, Coach?
Oh, it's phenomenal. Our gym is one of those gyms you don't want to play in if you're an opponent because it gets so loud, it's so tight, and we feed off that energy. My team feeds off my energy and the crowd's energy, and tonight the crowd showed up for the Lady Cougars.
And that was Coach Fowler Bullock, head women's basketball coach over at Central Georgia Technical College. Guys, we'll take a quick commercial break and we'll come back right here on the Sports Wrap TV 38. Craig Lawson will be joining us coming up next right here on TV 38 WRWR Sports Wrap. We'll be back. And welcome back to the Sports Wrap right here on TV 38 WRWR. Joining us on the couch right now, Brandon Evans, Craig Lawson, and we've got the super producer also set up, Brad Boswick, sitting right there. Going to get in there and get in on this discussion. We're going to talk about the BCS National Championship game, Alabama versus Notre Dame. We'll also talk about the dominance of the SEC the last 7 years with the BCS, as well as the legacy of Nick Saban right now at the University of Alabama. I think this is going to be an interesting talk and discussion, guys. What did y'all, first and foremost, Craig, what were your thoughts? BCS National Championship, we turn around, and before you look at it, it's 35-0 Alabama.
Yeah, and I don't really think any of us really expected that. You and I picked Alabama to win the game, and but we didn't think it would be like that.
Yeah.
I thought Notre Dame would at least show up and have some sort of semblance of competition. But Alabama, and the scary thing about Alabama is this was supposed to be a rebuilding year for them. Their offensive line was really good, but they've got a lot of true freshmen that are playing with T.J. Yeldon and Amari Cooper, and then a couple other guys that are going to be coming in next year. So it's scary, for everyone else in the nation to see what Alabama was able to do to Notre Dame. Now, I think, Notre Dame might not have been the best competition. Probably Oregon would have probably given them a little bit better game. But, yeah, I was very impressed.
Yeah, I got to tell you, with Alabama's offensive line, and you give Eddie Lacy untouched into the secondary, all 225, 235 pounds, those Notre Dame safeties, you can just see their eyes get real big like, oh, no, here he comes again. And it was just a power running game. Yeldon and Lacy, each over 100 yards. And then A.J. McCarron, him and his hot girlfriend, just, man, they were lighting it up. It was just it was just amazing to watch. But like you said, 35-0, I turned it off. So.
How about Lacy and his spin moves? He's really perfected the art of the spin move and getting out of tough spots.
At the right time, actually.
Yeah. Great at it.
And the one thing about it, Brad, give us your insight and thoughts on this BCS National Championship game.
Well, Leland, I basically think it was a free national championship for whoever played Notre Dame. Georgia come up 4.5 yards short, from basically having a free national championship. Makes me sick. It also begs the question, I know we're going to have a 4-team playoff in 2014, but is that enough? Because who would you have put in the playoffs, the other 4 teams? It would have been Georgia, Oregon, Stanford, Texas A&M. I don't think a 4-team playoff is going to solve anything. It's a broken system. I think an 8-team playoff at the least right now. What do you think about that, guys?
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I think the 8-team playoff was perfect. That would be my scenario because here's the thing. Would you have put Georgia in there? They put Florida in the Sugar Bowl for the BCS.
But they couldn't have. Yeah, they couldn't have with the way it's set up this year. I don't think Georgia would have made it in. They probably deserved to be in there. But, that's a great point by Brad. I don't think Georgia would have made it in.
Oregon wouldn't have made it in either because Stanford won the Pac-12.
That's exactly right.
So then you got,
Stanford, Notre Dame, and then
the Big Ten champion.
Yeah, something like that.
That's Florida State, Wisconsin.
Yeah, Florida State, maybe, and then Notre Dame. That would just been So still wouldn't have got to the correct national champion if Alabama would have won, but you wouldn't have maybe had the 4 best teams.
All right, different question, guys. How about if Urban Meyer at Ohio State had chosen to take the sanctions last year on this Ohio State team? This Ohio State team went undefeated this year.
Right.
We could have seen a situation where Alabama may not have even played in this national championship game. What do you guys think about that?
With all due respect to Nick Saban, and everybody around here jumps on me all the time, but I think Urban Meyer is the best coach of the country by a small margin. He wins everywhere he goes. Immediately when he gets there, he wins.
So does Steve Spurrier.
Look. He's not winning championships though at South Carolina. He's just happy to get to a championship game in the SEC. Urban Meyer wins everywhere he goes, and I think that's an excellent point. Now I think there's a debate there between him and Nick Saban, but yeah, it's a very interesting point. With Ohio State and the way that he's in the Big Ten now, he can win in the SEC. Now he's going to be recruiting and getting Big Ten, and winning the Big Ten. I would say pretty consistently. I think he's going to be a big threat up there, but He'll bust in.
He's a good coach, but he's still not getting the players that Nick Saban's getting, and he's still going to be the best team in the Big Ten, which this year was like, what, the 15th best team in the country? Right. The Big Ten was terrible. They went 2-7 in the bowl games.
Yeah, and I think Nick Saban is the reason Urban Meyer had all those health issues, and that's why he left and been broadcasting for a little while. Now he's at Ohio State. But to answer your question, Leland, Ohio State maybe should have taken those sanctions earlier, but without I mean, they had to have that controversy and had to have that to get rid of Tressel to bring Urban Meyer in. Otherwise, without Urban Meyer, they don't go undefeated. But without those sanctions, they don't get Urban Meyer.
That's true.
Yeah, my biggest concern, though, guys, is the fact that you could have taken Urban Meyer and the Ohio State Buckeyes could have taken these sanctions last year in his first season, and I think that was that was just a thought on it, because it would have with the 14.
It was a lost season last year.
Yeah,
anyway.
right. But my point is, this year you would have had. I promise you, you wouldn't have had Alabama in this national championship game. It would have been Notre Dame and Ohio State in this national championship.
And that would have actually been really bad for college football, I think, because we've seen that Alabama is the best team. And even Ohio State fans, they don't really think they could have beaten Alabama this year. They're happy with the undefeated season. They would have liked to have gone to a bowl game, but most level-headed Ohio State fans know that this was not the year for them to play against Alabama. So I think it is actually, for all of us, is a good thing. It's a bad thing for Ohio State.
Well, let me get back to the game, BCS National Championship game. Guys, again, here on the couch, we're having our little roundtable discussion about the BCS National Championship game. Craig Lawson, Brandon Evans, and the super producer himself, Brad Boswick, joining us as well. What did you guys think, and I know we want to wrap this segment up quickly, but what did you guys think about McCarron and Barrett Jones having their issues during the middle of the game? Did that show their competitive? These guys were up, 40-something to 7 at that time.
Yeah.
What did you guys think about that little exchange that they had?
I mean, they're roommates, right? They're real good friends. And, it's different when you
National
know somebody
television.
really well. You can be like, come on, man, you should have called a timeout, or come on, you dropped off sides, or whatever. It's different. And I think they were over it the minute after it happened, so it wasn't a big deal.
I liked it. I like the competitive spirit, and I like they weren't scared. They didn't care they were on national television. Barrett Jones said, I probably shouldn't have pushed him, but don't get in my face like that.
Right. And then the fact that you are leading in the fourth quarter of a national championship game.
Yeah.
You're leading by 4 touchdowns, and still you're concerned about one play. That's the great thing I enjoy.
And we heard
about
Nico Johnson after the game. He was mad they gave up 2 touchdowns.
Exactly.
Yeah, that all goes back to Nick Saban, though, and what Nick
right.
Saban expects of his players.
Yeah. The first thing for me is, Brad, I want to get your thoughts on this. Nick Saban post-game talked about the fact that he was going to only take 24 to 48 hours to revel in this national championship game, and then he was going to be on the recruiting trail. How about this? How about the fact that just this morning, Nick Saban was on the phone on a 90-minute phone call with University of Georgia's prospect, Bryce Ramsey, on the phone with him, trying to pull his commitment from the University of Georgia. What do you think about that?
You want to know what I think, Leland? It makes me sick. I mean, this guy is robbing the state of Georgia for our best recruits, and we are the best recruiting state in the nation right now, and it's his life. He never stops. He's a machine. He's got to go pro. He's got to get out of this. He's got to go pro. He's got to retire, do something, because he is absolutely robbing. Think about if Georgia could close its borders and get our players in state. We would be where Alabama is right now.
Hey, we all heard Dallas Jackson say on our show right here, Georgia was the hotbed for recruiting, #1 in the nation as far as recruiting was concerned. Real quick, last thing before we get out of here. Legacy of Nick Saban right now in college football lore and at the University of Alabama, because that's where it's all being gauged right now. So first things first, I'm going to do it as quickly as you possibly can. Craig Lawson, in the nation and at Alabama.
I think right now you have to say, even though I think Urban Meyer is the best coach, he is the most accomplished coach in the nation, and he deserves that title. And I think at Alabama he's second to only Bear Bryant.
Yeah, I would actually rarely agree with Craig on that one. I think Nick Saban, he's got a statue. He's staying at Alabama unless someone comes up with some ludicrous contract that draws him away and it's the right situation in the NFL.
Yeah, Gene Stallings has a statue out there too, but still, I mean, my whole point is that I think for what Saban has to do right now, with all the recruiting he has to go out and do, they don't have back at Alabama, they had the pick of the litter. They did what they wanted. They could have as many kids on the football team as they wanted to. They didn't have the scholarship limitations. I think Nick Saban right now at Alabama is top dog at the University of Alabama right now. And obviously if he wins another national championship or two at Alabama, I think you'll hear the stories more so of Nick Saban with this generation of kids than you hear about Bear Bryant when those guys kind of die off. I hate to say it like that. Brad, your thoughts?
I couldn't agree with you more, Leland.
All right, man. All right, guys. Well, there it is. You heard us roundtable discussion. Coming up next, Craig Lawson and myself will talk a little bit about the Georgia Bulldogs, and obviously they got some great news from one of their key players. We'll talk about that coming up next right here, and we'll come back obviously in the last segment of the show, and we'll do our NFL picks for the playoffs right here on the Sports Wrap TV 38. We'll be back. And welcome back to the Sports Wrap right here on TV 38 WRWR, your Middle Georgia sports leader. And we want to also pay tribute and thank Flint Energies for obviously their contributions and everything that they do here for our show here on the Sports Wrap TV 38. Joining me right now, my good friend Craig Lawson. And Craig and I are going to talk a little bit about the BCS National Championship, the dominance of the SEC, the legacy possibly of where we see a Nick Saban sitting at, obviously a little bit later on as well. We'll discuss that a little bit later in our little maybe a roundtable discussion. But first, what we're going to talk about today, obviously, is how about all you Georgia fans out there right now? I'm sure you're excited. Georgia goes out, annihilates Nebraska in the Capital One Bowl. Then a few days later, you find out 9 days before he has to actually commit to going that quarterback Aaron Murray is on his way back to the University of Georgia. What are your thoughts? What did you think when you heard about that, when it was tweeted out, and he tweeted it out on his own Twitter handle?
Well,
what did you think?
I think it was obviously it's a good thing for the University of Georgia. Aaron Murray, he's much maligned, but this kid, he wins a lot of games. He puts up great numbers, and to me, it seems like the smart choice for him. Even though the draft class this year is going to be weak, so he could have potentially gone higher.
Exactly.
So he may be costing himself some money.
I think he's costing himself a lot of money.
But I think with all the records on the table, and I don't personally think Aaron Murray is going to be
hurting for money.
Well, hurting for money. I don't think he really has the chops to play in the NFL personally, but I think he could be a really good college quarterback. And left a lot to be desired in that SEC championship game last year. I know he said that's going to haunt him for the rest of his life. So I'd like to see him maybe get some redemption there. And when I look at Georgia's team, part of me was a little bit excited to see maybe if Hudson Mason or Christian LeMay or even Bryce Ramsey coming in could take the reins and just be a big game winning quarterback. But I really think if you're a Georgia fan, the odds are Aaron Murray, if you're going to have a shot to win a championship next year, Aaron Murray is going to be the horse you have to ride.
I think Aaron Murray just ruined his opportunity to possibly to slip into the first round of the draft. Think about this. Think about 2 years ago in the NFL draft, how weak of an NFL draft it was. Christian Ponder, Blaine Gabbert, Jake Locker. I mean, you had guys that are right now pedestrian quarterbacks in the NFL that got bumped up. No one thought Minnesota was going to step up and pull Christian Ponder in the first round, and they did. This could have been Aaron Murray's possibly only shot of being a first-round draft choice, because when you look back at last year's draft, Andrew Luck, RG3, go down to the third round, Robert Griffin the third, fourth round, Kirk Cousins. These guys have proven with some semblance of success that you can go down and pull a good quarterback down in the second, third, or fourth round, because Andy Dalton was a Pro Bowler his rookie year and was a second-round draft choice. I look at this situation, and I think Andy Murray hurt himself, but I also think Andy Murray just hurt the depth chart on the University of Georgia football in the quarterback position, because we'll say it right here first, guys. I think Christian LeMay transfers, leaves the University of Georgia because he is slowly but surely sliding down that depth chart, and he's right now sitting about third or fourth on that depth chart right now, thinking he'd have an opportunity. If Hudson Mason got in and got an opportunity this year, he would maybe bump up a little bit. But with Bryce Ramsey coming in, who played in the Under Armour All-America game.
He didn't look very good, though.
He didn't look good, but Mark Richt came out also and said he didn't think it'll have any effect on his growth.
Right. I
tell you right now, and the Camden County standout, by the way, in Bryce Ramsey, I just honestly believe Aaron Murray threw this entire offense and this team off track a little bit, because they're going to need to keep having good quarterbacks in place for this team and the kind of offense unless they get rid of Mike Bobo and bring in a new offensive system.
Well, and I think that's a valid point, but I think if you're Georgia going forward, I don't think you can be upset about Aaron Murray coming back,
Right.
just for the prospect of next year. But you're right, though. There's going to be, Hudson Mason was hoping to maybe step in, and you're right, LeMay. And if you're looking at the success of quarterbacks in high school, LeMay's the guy on the roster who has
Right.
had the most success. Now, he was in North Carolina,
Right.
and he didn't even play his senior year. But when he was a junior, they won the state championship by 35 points in
Right.
North Carolina in 4A. So this kid has a lot of talent, but the only pass I saw him throw this year was a touchdown to the other team. So,
Right.
He's kind of regressed, and he hasn't seen game action in a long time, not meaningful game action in years. So.
Well, here's the big thing as well. You have to hope that Hudson Mason also decides to do like DJ Shockley did. I think it was behind David Green.
Yep.
Where Shockley had to stick around and waited his 1 year, and then he led the Georgia Bulldogs to an SEC
He was a
championship
great player,
game and
great
SEC
quarterback.
title. But I think with LeMay, from what I'm hearing, for those people that are at the practices, seeing LeMay practice, they are not. This team is not impressed. It's just like we saw up in the New York Jets, guys. When you saw the Jets and Tim Tebow get pushed down almost the third string, they wondering why. We're not seeing these guys practice every day.
Right.
And when these coaches are seeing them, these guys are getting pushed down the depth chart, and I think that's going to be an issue. My concern right now, though, my concern wasn't with Aaron Murray coming back this year. My biggest concern was Kwame Gathers deciding whether or not he was going to come back.
And we're still waiting on it.
We're still waiting on that, and that's going to be a tough decision.
Yeah, and I think, we got Jonathan Taylor and we got Atkins that was able to sign out of junior college. He's an early enrollee now, so he's a big nose tackle that is going to be able to help step in and replace Kwame, or if he stays, spell him, because Kwame's a big guy and he can't play the whole game because he's so big he gets
360.
winded. Yeah. So if Georgia can keep him around now, his family's track record, Robert, his brother, was at Georgia, and Clifton was at South Carolina. They both left early. He feels like he's kind of bucked the trend because he could have left even earlier, but he's stayed around, an extra year. So people are thinking he's going to leave. Now, I'd like, this is a draft that's pretty deep at defensive tackle, though. So he could possibly up his draft status. But then again, when you're 6'6", 350, 360, how long can your knees hold up and play? You might want to make your money while you can. So I'm not really sure how this is going to go. And, you try to get into these guys' heads, and you don't know what they're thinking.
Right.
But sometimes, those dollar signs get in your eyes, and it's hard to keep those guys around. But people are saying he's going to leave. So, but that's going to be huge for Georgia because they need that huge, and that's 3-4 defense. You got to have that big zero nose tackle that can handle double teams and take pressure off the linebackers.
Well, ask a former LSU standout and current Kansas City Chief, Glenn Dorsey.
Yep.
Obviously, he had to take the opportunity to go to the NFL, and what has he done? Nothing in the NFL. He was a number 4 pick, I believe, in the draft, taking only 1 pick behind Matt Ryan and our Atlanta Falcons at the number 3 spot. Here's my thing. Where do you see this Georgia Bulldogs team? Do you see them after that impressive victory in the bowl game? After Alabama's blowout victory in the national championship game, and I'm sure Georgia fans right now, I'm sure you guys are beating your heads up against the wall right now thinking we could have had another national
Leland, we are.
championship
We're
game.
beating our heads up against the wall.
Yeah, and they made you.
It hurts.
Heck, the hair jumped off your face.
Yeah, it did.
Because
I didn't shave. It just fell
it
off.
It just fell off because Alabama destroyed Notre Dame, who seemed ill prepared for that game. We'll definitely talk about that. But my biggest thing is that when you look at everything being equal, this is a situation where Georgia, it's either piss or get off the pot. And I think at this point, you've got to look at what Mark Richt and this team are doing, where they're going to be next year. What are your thoughts? Because I have some choice thoughts about where they're going to be.
It's all about the first 4 games. You got Clemson to open up with, and we saw what they did against LSU with that hurry-up offense, so that's scary. Especially, we're going to have a lot of new defensive players that are starting for the first time next year. I think they're capable physically, but can they step in, on the road in Death Valley? It's going to be a hostile environment. Georgia and Clemson, they used to hate each other back in the 80s.
Right.
So, that game, and then you got South Carolina at home. Still going to have Jadeveon Clowney. They're still going to have to deal with Connor Shaw. Then you got kind of an easier game, and then you got LSU, who's thankfully losing all their good players, but you know how LSU is going to reload. So I think it's about those first 4 games.
LSU's gonna reload.
Well, you would think they normally are able to plug in pretty easily,
Right.
but with all that they're losing, especially on the defensive side of the ball, If Georgia can get through those first 3 games, maybe with 1 loss, which would, I think that would be pretty serendipitous if they could get through that. Then, the schedule starts to shape up. You got Florida, and then after that, Georgia will be favored in all the rest of the games, and might even be favored in the Florida game, depending on how Florida is able to improve last year to this year. We know they're going to have talent. So I think it's mainly about those first 3 or 4 games, and I see Georgia probably, I would guess they're going to lose at least 2 games next year. But, there's still hope for, possibly not. Maybe Aaron Murray, that flip switches and he becomes that big game guy who steps up and, just starts putting the team on his back.
Well, we'll see, and we'll see what happens. All right, Craig thinks that Aaron Murray coming back, obviously a good thing for the Georgia Bulldogs. I think it stagnates this team's growth and ability to grow moving forward, and I think it obviously hurts a little depth as well. But offensive line is going to be an issue. The Georgia Bulldogs are going to have an experienced quarterback, obviously, and with left guard and left tackle kind of being up for grabs with the Georgia Bulldogs. All right, guys, coming up next, we've got a coaching carousel we're going to talk about in the NFL with Brandon Evans right here on the Sports Wrap, TV 38 WRWR. Craig, thank you so much, man. We'll stick around in a minute. We'll get our NFL picks for this NFL playoff weekend.
Sounds great.
All right, guys, we'll be back. And welcome back to the Sports Wrap right here on TV 38 WRWR. Again, I'm your host, Leland Ragin. Joining me, Brandon Evans. That's Brandon Evans here, the sports anchor here at TV 38. You guys can follow him on Twitter at BrandonATL. Is that right? At
Brandon Evans ATL.
At Brandon Evans ATL. Okay, I missed that one a little bit. But anyway, guys.
Tweet me.
Hit him up with a tweet. He wants to get tweeted a little bit. So, but guys, we've got a great segment here set up for you. We're going to talk a little bit about the NFL and the coaching carousel that's going on right now. There were 7 vacancies, Brandon, in the NFL at the end of this season, which 2 of them have been filled now. Those obviously those 2 have been the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City Chiefs job, I don't think, stayed open more than a week. They brought in Andy Reid after firing Romeo Crennel after only 1 season. Give me your thoughts on the firing after 1 year of Romeo Crennel and the bringing in of Andy Reid and pretty much Reid putting together a staff before he even left Philly, before their last game. He was setting up a staff for his next job.
Yeah, quite a week for Andy Reid. You get fired on Monday, you got a new job on Friday, and Andy Reid, I think, took the Kansas City job over some of the other places he was looking at because he's going to have a little more control. He's going to be kind of like the coach/GM there. And, talk about Romeo Crennel, it's the NFL. What have you done for me lately now? And I think that a lot of the teams are gearing towards offensive-minded coaches now in the NFL, basically because it's become such a passing league. Romeo Crennel, excellent defensive coach. He'll get on somewhere, of course, but definitely it surprised a lot of people when Andy Reid went to Kansas City and now the pieces he's putting in place. So it's going to be interesting to see what he does there. They do have the #1 pick, so
and that was the main reason I thought he took the job. A lot of people thought he was going to take the San Diego Chargers job out there that's been vacated when Norv Turner and A.J. Smith were released out there in San Diego. He basically said he didn't want any parts of that San Diego job, and he turns around and the Kansas City job. Kansas City historically has been one of those teams that has had the loudest facility, the hardest facility to play in, so to speak, in Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City. They had a tragedy with Javon Belcher, obviously the linebacker there, that basically murder-suicide situation. They get rid of Scott Pioli, who seemed to have been that guy in New England. Here's another thing. How about Bill Belichick's kind of tree? Guys that have come from under Bill Belichick that decide to leave Bill Belichick have failed. Look at Crennel. Look at Scott Pioli. Look at McDaniel, who is back up there working for him now. And then you had obviously the former head coach at Notre Dame,
Charlie
Weiss. None of these guys have had much success after leaving Belichick. And then Josh McDaniels come back and look at the season they're having now as a coordinator. Sometimes some people are just meant to be coordinators. Yeah,
I think with Bill Belichick, people are kind of grasping at straws. It's kind of like the seven degrees of Kevin Bacon, the movie thing. They're just trying to figure out who coached with Belichick. Maybe he rubbed off on him a little bit, but it has not been as successful as Belichick. Although Belichick really needed Brady to be successful. He wasn't successful at Cleveland, so it was a marriage that was made in heaven for them too.
What are your thoughts? Again, again, you still have 5 vacancies left. Well, first and foremost, let me just jump back. Buffalo Bills hired Doug Marrone out of Syracuse. They hired a Syracuse head coach. Now, guys, understand, Syracuse hadn't won games since Donovan McNabb was there, 15, 16 years ago. They won, had a very successful season this year. Syracuse goes out and beats Ole Miss, I think it was, in a bowl game earlier. Not Ole Miss, Mississippi State. They beat an SEC team in Mississippi State. Who was? No, Northwestern won that game.
Northwestern beat Mississippi State, and
right.
Ole Miss won their bowl game. But Syracuse
did win their
bowl
bowl
game. They won their bowl game.
They beat somebody that was obviously from a big conference.
Sure, Brad will pop that up. Oh, there it is.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm sure we'll figure it out. But, again, that's on me. But Syracuse did win a bowl game here recently. I think they won the Pinstripe Bowl up in New York. So I think it was I'm on the right one.
The famous Pinstripe Bowl.
Pinstripe Bowl up in Yankee Stadium. But get Marrone in to replace Changady. Again, I think the Buffalo Bills are getting what they pay for. That's why I think the organization is still going to stay where it is until they go out and find a top-notch coach to come in with the talent. And they find a quarterback, because Fitzpatrick just isn't the deal. But 5 more vacancies still open. Philadelphia Eagles, Cleveland Browns. You've got the
San Diego Chargers
and
Chicago Bears.
Chicago Bears are still sitting out there with vacancies. Lovie Smith is getting a little play right now. Where do you think some of these coaches will land? And why are none of the top-notch coaches that are doing media right now, Tony Dungy, Bill Cowher, you've got Jimmy Johnson, John Gruden, none of them are even sniffing, even Brian Billick. None of these guys who've all won Super Bowl rings, they're all sitting behind the booth, and all of them are pretty decent age. Cowher only 55.
Yeah, I think a lot of these guys, they got pretty cushy jobs now with ESPN or Fox Sports or however they're doing it, and they're waiting for the right job to come back. They're waiting for the right situation. They don't want to come back if it's going to be to coach in Cleveland or Kansas City. They want to come back at the right job with the right things in place. And plus, broadcasting is pretty easy. I don't know if they're ready to go back working those 365 days a year, because that's what it is in the NFL.
Right, and that's exactly what it is. You guys can get into the discussion by calling 478-345-1500. That's 478-345-1500. Or you can hit us up on Twitter at SportsRapTV38. That's at SportsRapTV38. All right, last thing before we get out of here on this segment. Looks like guys like Nick Saban and Chip Kelly kind of used their stature a little bit in the college ranks and whatnot to have some of these NFL teams come flirt with them a little bit. And what did it do? Put a little extra money in their pocket. Chip Kelly got a little over $1 million raise up in Oregon when it looked like he was going to virtually get the Cleveland Browns job. He went and flirted with the Eagles, and then the next thing you know, here comes Phil Knight, owner of Nike and president of Nike, to the rescue for Oregon. Throws $1 million of his own money from Nike into the pot to basically help pay Chip Kelly an extra little bit of money. I don't like these coaches, these college coaches, doing things like that where they hold a college hostage. Where does it stop? Because the salaries are escalating. A college coach now makes more money than most NFL coaches.
Yeah, the good ones do. And the way that I look at that situation is kind of like a high school party, and you go up to a girl at a party, and she doesn't want to have anything to do with you until another girl comes up to you and starts talking to you, and all of a sudden she's like, oh, well, hey, Leland, what's going on? So it's kind of childish, and like you said, they really are holding these colleges hostage. So I think Nick Saban's not going anywhere. We talked about him maybe going to Cleveland, 100 million reasons to do it, but he's got a statue outside the stadium. He wants to be better than Bear Bryant. I don't think he's going anywhere. And with Chip Kelly, I think that would also have to be the right situation for him, because he would have to adapt his offense to the personnel he has, because he runs more of the spread type offense, which we don't see that much in the NFL. So I think the ones we're going to see names thrown around a lot more, the Colts offense coordinator Bruce Arians, we saw what he did this year. Ken Wisenhunt maybe going to the Browns. The Eagles have also talked to Mike Nolan, the Atlanta Falcons defensive coordinator, but I think he's staying, thank God, and Mike McCoy, the OC at the Broncos. So those are a couple of the names you might see thrown around out there.
Other name that just popped up this week, or later part of this week as well, is Jim Mora Jr. at UCLA, former Atlanta Falcons head coach. His name has popped up for the San Diego Chargers job. And again, I think Mora's in a situation in UCLA where he realizes he could actually do what Chip Kelly did, flirt with an NFL team, and get a little bit more money, maybe a $500,000 raise out of UCLA, I think he doesn't want to go anywhere. I don't think he wants to coach back in the NFL anytime soon.
Yeah, it's hard to tell, what's going through these coaches' minds.
He wasn't a light guy too much either. He wasn't a real likable guy. I hated his guts.
I've only met him one time. Say what you want about his coaching philosophy. I hung out with him at the Bell South Classic up in Gwinnett a couple years ago, and we were just walking the golf course, and he's a very personable guy, just talking to me. Had no idea I was a reporter at all, so maybe if I was a reporter, he would have treated me differently. But I have nothing bad to say about Jim Moore Jr. other than he had a hard time coaching the Falcons when he was here in Atlanta. But, to each their own, and, money talks in this game. It
does talk, and obviously, guys, I'm sure you will also see guys like Bobby Petrino in the college ranks get another big-time job somewhere else as well. All right, Sports Wrap TV 38, WRWR, Brandon Evans, Leland Ragin. We'll take a quick commercial break, and we'll come back to wrap this show up where we'll do our NFL picks. We'll talk about, we'll obviously talk about the playoffs. Will our Atlanta Falcons be able to handle the Seattle Seahawks? We'll talk about that and a lot more coming up next right here on the Sports Wrap TV 38. We'll be back. And welcome back to the Sports Wrap right here on your Middle Georgia Sports Leader TV 38 WRWR. Again, joining us on the couch, Brandon Evans, a sports anchor here at TV 38, as well as Craig Lawson, and joining us in the booth, the super producer himself, Brad Boswick, is joining us as well. So we're going to talk. We're going to have a nice little discussion. We talked about the BCS National Championship game a little bit earlier. Now it's time for our NFL picks for this playoff weekend. Our Falcons are in action. This is going to be exciting. But first, we've got games starting later on today at 4:30 p.m. We've got the Baltimore Ravens will travel to the thin air of Denver and face Peyton Manning in his, renewed neck, I guess. What do you think, Brandon?
His bionic neck?
Bionic neck, yeah.
I think the altitude's going to play a big deal in it, but we saw how motivated Baltimore came out last week with Ray Lewis announcing his retirement. Baltimore playing very inspired ball right now. Joe Flacco, he does very well in the playoffs. And, I'd like to take Baltimore, but I just can't. I can't bet against Peyton Manning in the playoffs, at least this early in the playoffs when he's not playing Tom Brady. But I think it's going to be a lot closer than that. Vegas had it at over a touchdown spread. I think it's going to be a lot closer than that, but I think Broncos win by field goal.
I like Denver in this game as well. And Peyton Manning's struggles in the playoffs are well noted, but he has some really talented receivers this year, and they're like the last half of the season, him and Eric Decker and Demaryius Thomas have really gotten on the same page. And even in the run game, no Sean Marino. They lost, Willis McGahee has had injury problems, but with Ronnie Hillman, no Sean Marino. And then I like their pass rush. I like Von Miller and Elmer Dumerville's ability to get after Joe Flacco and disrupt his timing and his throwing motion, and that's why I think Denver's going to win this game at home.
Well, I'm going Baltimore in this game. Here's why. I think Peyton Manning has a normal Peyton Manning game versus Ed Reed. Ed Reed has 7 interceptions against Peyton Manning over his career. 7 of his 69 against Peyton Manning. He has given Peyton Manning fits when Peyton was at Indianapolis. I think this is going to be another situation where you see the defensive backcourt and Pollard. You'll see a motivated front 7 for the Baltimore Ravens. They'll get after Peyton Manning. I think this is going to be a tough game for them. I think Peyton has a couple turnovers, kind of like what we saw when they played the Atlanta Falcons at the first game of the season. I'm going Baltimore Ravens.
Don't forget they got Ray Lewis back, the inspirational leader of the defense. So
oh, most definitely.
And
who did his Ray Lewis dance, obviously for the last time there at M&T Bank Stadium there in Baltimore. So we've got, obviously, first game, obviously, we've got a little differences in our picks, so that's pretty good. Second game, 8 p.m., Green Bay Packers will travel to the nice balmy weather in San Francisco on the Bay. They will play the 49ers. It's going to be an interesting game. Give us your thoughts on it, Craig.
I really think San Francisco is going to run away with this game. And Green Bay has been so good over the past few years, but I don't like the way I feel like they're just kind of shaky. I mean, they beat Minnesota last week, and they were able to hold Adrian Peterson in check. But I just like the way that this offense is playing. I think the question mark is Kaepernick. How's he going to play in his first playoff game? And what is that going to mean for this 49ers team? But the way Frank Gore's been running the ball this year, Crabtree's started to look a lot better as a receiver. You got Vernon Davis, and then just the defense with Patrick Willis and Navarro Bowman and just everyone else. And I really like Harbaugh in the playoffs, and I think that San Francisco's going to win this game at home because Green Bay's the traveling team. So I like San Francisco with Green Bay with the long trip.
Well, I'm not that confident in San Francisco. I think Colin Kaepernick in the playoffs, his first playoff game, he might have a little bit of jitters. Green Bay, they're Green Bay. You know, it's Aaron Rodgers. But I'm still going to take San Fran. I think it's probably going to be the last team with the ball, though. I think this is going to be another very, very close game. And I'm only taking San Fran because they have a running game and Green Bay doesn't.
Well, obviously, Green Bay did have a little bit of a running game against Minnesota. They did pick up some yards.
They have shown some flashes.
And had some flashes. I'm going Green Bay in this game, guys. I know I'm going opposite, but the big thing is this. I think Dom Capers, defensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers, dials up a defense that is going to befuddle Colin Kaepernick. I think he's had some time to prepare. He knows they already knew who pretty much they were going to play if they got past Minnesota. I think this is going to be a tough game for him. Watch and see. We may even see Alex Smith get put in this game late somewhere where maybe to try to pull them back. I think that becomes a mistake as well, but I'm going Green Bay.
I think one thing you have to watch for if you're the 49ers are corner blitzes, because you've got not Rod Woodson. Charles Woodson he's back now. And then you got Casey Hayward, the kid from Perry,
Georgia,
who's been playing outstanding this year. From
6
the nickel
interceptions,
position.
2 sacks.
Yeah, he's just been playing. And the defensive backfield for the Green Bay Packers has, gotten a lot stronger. They have depth now. I still think the 49ers are going to win the game, but I think if you're the 49ers, you've really got to be aware of that.
Good Middle Georgia contingency. You got number 93, Eric Walden from Dublin, Georgia. Dublin High School stand out as well from Middle Georgia, starting outside linebacker for the Green Bay Packers. So tough game to pick, but again, we obviously a few differences. Sunday's games a little bit better. 1 o'clock, our Atlanta Falcons, the Seattle Seahawks in 2 consecutive weeks will go from the West Coast to the East Coast and play a tough game early in the day. This game is like a 8 a.m. game for them, basically.
Right. Yeah.
That might be an issue. You may see these guys get into Atlanta maybe early Friday, if not maybe sometime Thursday night,
right,
just to get adjustment on the time again. Interesting game. I'm gonna let you guys go ahead and pick because I think I've got some interesting thoughts.
I believe that Seattle they have lost Chris Clemens, but I think that Seattle is going to win this game, predicated predominantly on defense. I like the way Russell Wilson's playing, and then obviously you have Marshawn Lynch. It is tough to travel the way that Seattle's going to be traveling, but I think they're arguably the hottest team in football right now. The Falcons have surprised me a lot this year, and they'll surprise me again if they win this, and I think Seattle's going to win.
Yeah, they are the hottest team in football. They haven't lost since November. They've got one of the strongest running games in the game, plus a quarterback I think should have got Rookie of the Year. I mean, where is RG3 and Andrew Luck right now? They're at home. The Rookie of the Year, Russell Wilson, and guess what? They still lose to the Falcons. The Falcons, they're at the Dome. Everything is on the line because if Matt Ryan and Mike Smith lose another playoff game, I'm telling you, it is going to be.
It's going to be a tough offseason.
It is going to be
chaos.
It is going to be one of those stigmas that sticks with them until they get the proverbial monkey off their back. But I think the Falcons win, and I think they win in another convincing fashion.
Well, I don't think that they're going to win. I shouldn't have said obviously, but I think the Seattle Seahawks are going to win this game. Let me give you guys a reason why. The Legion of Boom, 6'3", 220-pound cornerbacks that are going to be facing our 6'4" and 6'4" wide receivers in Julio Jones and Roddy White. They have not faced anything like this all season long. The cornerbacks that they've been able to muscle and get out and get open in the routes have all been 5'9", 5'10". This is going to, when you sitting there got a guy looking you face to face that you can't pull around and muscle around, it's going to be interesting to see if they can get into their routes or they get held up. You also have a 6'3", 235-pound safety who's going to be covering Tony Gonzalez as well. That's another interesting thought. You got health issues.
Earl Thomas?
Yes. Yeah. Well, Earl Thomas, 6 feet, 210.
Yeah.
He's the smallest of those
of
those defensive backs, but they're big, strong safety who's going to be patrolling the middle. This game is going to be a game, a catch-22 game for our Atlanta Falcons. We've not been able to stop the run. We made Stephen Hollins from Arizona look like Earl Campbell when he played against us. Marshawn Lynch, second leading rusher in the NFL with over 1,500 yards. I think he's going to get 150 yards rushing on us. The Rookie of the Year, Russell Wilson. who has the third highest quarterback rating in the NFL this season. He tied the rookie record with Peyton Manning with the most touchdowns this season. Only had 7 interceptions to 30 touchdowns, I believe, 27 touchdowns, I believe. This is going to be the toughest matchup. They're going to run that read option a little bit more, I believe, as well against our Falcons. John Abraham not being able to rush as quickly off of that ankle, that high ankle sprain that he had just a couple weeks ago against Tampa. William Moore coming back after missing 3 consecutive games, and Dante Robinson having neck and head injuries that he's going to be playing through. This is going to be an interesting game. I'm going Seattle Seahawks in a rout.
The Falcons haven't played a meaningful snap of football in 2 weeks now. You know, the Tampa Bay game, it didn't matter. They lost the game. They didn't play last week, and I think that's going to affect. And the X factor in this game for me, Bobby Wagner, the rookie middle linebacker, who has just been outstanding for the Seahawks this year on defense.
Well, obviously, we want to make sure you guys get your thoughts in and make sure you get an opportunity to give us your picks and pick against us. 478-345-1500, 478-345-1500, or at SportsRap TV 38. That's at SportsRap TV 38. Guys, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
One more game.
Well, thank you guys. Oh, yeah, I do have one more game. One more game. I'm getting sidetracked here. Houston, Texans, New England Patriots. This is going to be a cold weather game. Houston, Texans come from the comfy confines of Texas. They've won 1 game out of their last 4, I believe it is. I don't know. Give us your thoughts, Craig.
I'm just going to keep this in short and sweet. I think New England's going to win this game. I think they got Gronkowski back now, and their offense is going to roll. I was surprised Houston won last week, and I think that this is going to be the end of their road. Good win for Houston last week, but I think that Tom Brady is going to get it done.
I also agree with Craig. We've agreed a few times today. It's kind of rare, but yeah, I think this is usually where Belichick and Brady dominate. And Houston, they won last week over Cincinnati because they were the better team, but that running game, especially if Brady gets up early, the Texans have shown they've not been able to come back over a large deficit because Matt Schaub is not Tom Brady. I think if New England gets up early, this one could get ugly.
Yeah, I'm going New England Patriots in this game. I think the weather is going to play a factor as well. It's a 4:30 game, but I think it's going to play a factor. Still, it's supposed to be cold. I believe it's supposed to be like 20 inches of snow on the ground.
Wow.
So I think that's going to be a factor in this game as well. It's going to. I think it'll have some effect on Arian Foster running the ball as well as J.J. Watt getting upfield. But I think J.J. Watt still has a good game. But I think their defensive back core in the Houston Texans, I think they're just not used to playing in this kind of weather, and I think it affects them going forward. I'm going with the New England Patriots in this game. All right, guys, you have our picks. We want yours, 345-1500 or at SportsRap TV 38. Again, thank you so much for joining in each and every Saturday morning from 9 to 10 a.m. right here on your Middle Georgia sports leader for SportsRap and TV 38. We'll see you guys next Saturday. We're out of here.